Hello and welcome to Backyard History Battles. Today I'm going to be showing you some configurations of shelter halves from the Civil War. At the outbreak of the Civil War, soldiers were issued Sibley tents. These were great as they could house up to 12 men, but the issue was they were just much too large and cumbersome to take on campaign. This made it imperative that soldiers were issued a sustainable shelter. Thus, in the year 1862, soldiers are now issued the shelter half. The dog tent was very simple in its construction, with only buttons on one side and buttonholes on the other to fix them together with. Since you're only issued one half, you'd have to find a buddy to fix them together with to make a somewhat comfortable shelter. Shelter halves can be configured in many different ways. It all depends on resource availability and climate, in which I'll be showing you a few examples today. And with that being said, for the soldier who does not have access to adequate poles or stakes, may have to opt to using their shelter half as another layer for the laying on the ground. This first configuration I'll be showing you is the most common during the war and is the most desirable setup. It is often referred to as the dog tent because, well, soldiers would often joke that it was only big enough to house a dog inside. You would need your pard to help you out and set this one up because it is two halves. You'll need to muster a couple of Y-shaped poles about 36 and 48 inches long and the ridge around 72 inches long. Now that you have gathered poles to hold your tent upright, you'll need to start gathering some stakes to tie it down with. These can be bought in forged metal, like I'll be using in this video, or you can whittle yourself some and it'll be a little more accurate that way. Once you get your stakes, you will now want to stake down one side of your tent to the desired location. With that side securely staked into position, you will want to raise your poles and put the canvas over top. Make sure the middle, where the buttons are, is over top of the ridge pole. You are now ready to put in the stakes on the opposite side. You may lash together your ridge to your uprights. This completes your shelter for the night. And that is the basic way to set up your dog tent. But let's say, for instance, you don't have both halves, or perhaps you just don't want to sleep with somebody else because they snore too much. In that case, I think I have just the configuration for you. You'll need two upright poles. The length can vary in this configuration to best suit you, and the 4 stakes from the last configuration. Staking down your tent is the same as before, but you'll face your half towards you. Since you are no longer using a ridge, you'll have to use some nails to hold your tent up using the buttonholes or the grommet. You'll also want to incorporate some guy lines to secure the tent in the front. And with this is the completion of your shebang, or lean-to, as it was commonly referred. Alright, now that I've shown you a couple different configurations, one of which you can set up with a friend, it requires 2 halves, and one you can set up simply by yourself with one. I'm going to expand upon those simple concepts of the dog tent and the buttoning and whatnot to show you something else that is a little more complex. You'll want to have 4 uprights to make this configuration. The first thing to do would be to set up a lean-to as previously demonstrated, using 2 of our 4 uprights and some stakes. You'll now want to attach the other half of the tent by buttoning it to your lean-to. You'll now want to use some string or rope to tie down the front uprights to the ground with a couple more stakes. That will complete this improvised shelter. Well, there you have it. There's just a few ways you can set up your tent out in the field. You know, it is always important to take on very historical inspirations for your setup, and it's just as simple as going out in your backyard to find the materials. Thank you for watching. This has been another installment on the Reenactor's Guide.